Welcome to Soul Nutrition, where we discuss the various ways of nourishing our souls. I'm your host, author, speaker, and coach, Reina Rose. Today's guest is Felicia Searcy. Felicia's mastery is helping people create the life they love. Her purpose is her passion, to empower you to discover and express your best self as you create the life that you love. She is an international award-winning transformational speaker and coach, author, and minister who has helped thousands create a path for living their dream life. For over 20 years, Felicia has worked with people from all walks of life who are seeking the spiritual side of success. As a highly sought-after international speaker, she has shared the stage with powerhouse leaders such as international speaker Mary Morrissey, founder and CEO of the Women's E-Women Network, Sandra Yancey, and international motivational speaker Les Brown. Felicia's proven dream activation code helps folks just like you accelerate your results as you create a richer, more fulfilling life. Felicia, it's such a joy to have you on the show today.
Reina, it's great to be here.
So for those of you who don't know, Felicia was at the summit I did a few weeks back, and I just loved watching all her content that I said, you have to be on my show. My listeners need to hear everything you have to say, because as she was teaching, I was constantly just saying, yes, yes, taking notes. Yes, like everybody needs to know this. And we were talking just a little bit before the show, and I was saying how there's a reason there's 1%ers, because only 1% of people think like this and take actions like this and rise above awareness like Felicia teaches. So I'm so excited for her to share with us today so that we can get out of this 99% thinking and acting and doing. And I'm so excited to talk about be, do, have, being that which we want to be. And stepping into that 1% life where, as Felicia says, and I just love it, that from the bottom of your feet all the way up to your head, every day you're saying, I love my life. So Felicia, tell us how you got here. How did you become this woman who from the bottom of her feet up to the top of everything she is says, I love my life several times a day?
Yeah, thank you, Reina Rose. So it's so my life didn't start out this way. That it's my experience growing up was one coming from two well-intended but very unskilled, mentally ill, addicted parents. And so the summit that we did, there was a raising money for the name of the organization, Child Help, yes. And it's the reason why it spoke so closely to me is because that would have been one of the things that I would have loved to have been aware of as a kid, right? So lots of messages. I absorbed lots of messages growing up in terms of life is hard, it's not safe. Somehow there was something about me that caused that. If I would have been good enough, perfect enough, quiet enough, loud enough, I could have alleviated the pain in the household and things would have been okay. And so what I absorbed, or what I interpreted, right? Because it's all the filter that we experience through.
Right.
That there was something fundamentally flawed with me, and the world was not safe. Don't expect too much, and that fundamentally there was just this soul searing, like black spot in my soul that somehow I wasn't worthy of good. In fact, I can remember sometimes even feeling like I had to apologize for the ground that I was standing on, and it was one of those kinds of situations where there's moments when you're open, right?
Yes.
There's that opening. And I remember, and I was 22, so I was young when I discovered a different way, thinking there's got to be more to life than this. That it's like I had that moment of awareness where the fog kind of lifts for a moment, says, you know what, it probably really doesn't have, it's not just this is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in that moment of the fog lifting that when I began to look around, I realized that there was a way of being that was not defined by what happened, who I was up to that point, or where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I didn't necessarily know it then, but what I know now is that experience brought me to this where I am today. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, because
Absolutely.
it allows me to show up in ways that truly serve, right? So it was in that opening that I got a taste of something different. And one of the things for me during that period was that my relationship with God was one of, I always believed in God, but it was kind of a hiding. You know, God was something outside of me, and, you know, how could God have allowed this? Or I must have done something so horrible to deserve. Yeah. And so God was something to hide from. It's kind of like I stayed below God's radar. And when that opening started happening and I started hearing different possibilities and different ways that people were interacting with somewhat similar experiences and a different relationship and experience with God, it's like it's like I moved out of the basement of myself into the Technicolor, you know, in the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
She steps out and it's Technicolor, it's black and white, and she stepped out and it's Technicolor. That's what it felt like. That
Yeah.
it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much more. And so I was able to discover a system for deep healing, for beyond forgiveness, of true acceptance and understanding that if my parents could have done different, they would have done different. And even a level of gratitude for that experience, because it allowed me to develop capacities that allow me to be so much more present and in service to other people that I don't know that but would have happened otherwise. And to go beyond just surviving to building out a life that it's breathtaking, and it's how much I thrive, and realizing that I'm onto something here. It was given to, not even just that I'm onto something, but that this was given to me. And so now there's an accountability to it, to then share it with others. It's like to bring forward the legacy of what was so profoundly given and continues to be given to me.
Absolutely.
So
and I think it's
where I am.
Yeah, you're saying about how you wouldn't have had it any other way, and there's parts of you that couldn't have developed the way that they have unfolded without those experiences. I find time and time again with a lot of people who do achieve this victorious life of, I mean, it's an ecstatic life, really. I call it, you know, we go from those moments of heaven on earth, and we've all hopefully experienced a moment, right, where we're super grateful for life. And I've heard someone who had what they call a near-life experience instead of a near-death experience say that when they were in heaven, they felt like their body it couldn't contain the joy that was overflowing from them. Like they felt like they wanted to burst because they were still, you know, like attached to their body because they didn't die, they came back. And I think about that when I've had those moments where I have to cry and smile at the same time, because it's that heaven on earth moment. And I really do think that that's what we're created for. We're created to turn those moments into minutes, into weeks, into a lifetime, right? And I think, though, if we just arrived like that, if we just came and said, hey, we're joyous and everything is great, it'd be really hard to relate and bring people with us, right? And so when you can say, actually, I've been there. I've been the child who cried every day. I've been the hopeless teenager and early 20s, a young adult who has experienced the soul-crushing experience of only the facts equaling my life, and this is all it will ever be, and the despair that causes. I've been there. And now I can tell you there's something completely technicolor beyond this black and white life that we're able to see right now. And not only is it out there, you can live it here and now.
Yeah, Reina Rose, and here's the thing that's even beyond that, that absolutely you can live it even here and now, but that you are it.
Yes.
Because the thing that it's you know, and I don't remember if we were recording yet or not when you said, you know, be, do, have, you know, that most people have been trained to live do, have, be, right?
Yeah.
That first we do, then we'll have, then we can be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we then become defined by what we have and what we do. Right. It's backwards, right?
Absolutely backward.
And so where all that originates, right, is what we've been taught to fundamentally believe about ourselves or see ourselves. So one of the greatest gifts that I get to do today is to stand in unwavering belief and recognition of the magnificence and the brilliance and the beauty of the person standing in front of me.
Yeah.
Regardless if they know it for themselves, and where they came from, or who they're being in the moment, but to take a stand for their beingness before a single thing changes in them and in their world.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that today, that a gift God has given me, especially in interviewing and things like that, is that he allows me to really fall in love with the person in front of me the way that he sees them, right? And and this joy and really appreciating people. And I think about, you know, the Sanskrit namaste, you know, they say the divinity in me honors the divinity in you. And sometimes I think in especially more fundamentalist Christianity, we can get very caught up in, okay, that's not Christian or that's not what we do. But I really look at that and I think about the creation story where God breathes his very breath into this clay figure, right? And this clay becomes this mysterious human divine creation. And he just created the sun and the sky and everything that exists, and then creates out of clay a human, breathes his very breath into them to animate this human. And to me, to think we're anything less than the very breath of God being breathed every single day, and he's creative. He created everything that exists. If we don't go out and create a life and say, and this is good, and this is good, and this is good, then we're doing disservice to the very creator we were created in the image of.
Well, that's the thing, is that we have an accountability to create a life that bears witness to the power that's moving through us, right? Think about this. We are not designed, if you just think about the human body, just think about the physical body by itself. The physical body is not designed to function well under stress. It breaks down under stress. It breaks down under hardship. It breaks down under struggle. So when do we thrive? We thrive when we're living life richly, abundantly, we're present, we're acknowledgement, we're in gratitude. So when you look at just the human body as an indicator of what the universe, God, spirit, whatever name people want to give it, that it's our physiological design to thrive. We are physiologically designed to thrive.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, what is the methodology of thriving? How do we thrive? We thrive when we are living that life where we absolutely say, oh my God, I love my life.
Yeah.
Because it's understanding that we've been given this remarkable power to be able to create that life.
Mm-hmm.
And when we unlock a life that we love, we're really unlocking this God-given power and putting it in service to something so much bigger and more magnificent than us.
Yeah.
And it is the way that God grows us and wakes us up to even more of our magnificence. So there's a bit of a misconception, I think, that we suffer and then we're rewarded kind of
Yeah.
thing. There's a bit of missing the boat of realizing this indescribable capacity that we've all been given to create. Every single one of us. There's not a single person who's immune from that.
Absolutely. Whether you realize it or not is a totally different story, whether you take a hold of it. But we've all been that very breath, that divinity in me and divinity in you. We all have that capacity to create our world, to create the world around us, to create worlds.
Well, think about this. 300 years ago, if I wanted to get from LA, let's say, to Atlanta, if I wanted to go from LA to Atlanta, if I were going to do it, I would have had to either ridden a horse or walk. It would take months, right? It would have taken months. Now I just get on an airplane and I'm there in 4 or 5 hours and I hope that the Wi-Fi doesn't go down.
Yeah.
Right?
And the thing that we talked about a little bit before we did hit record, I get accused of this all the time. Well, you don't live in reality. Okay. Like maybe not this reality of what everyone else can see, the 99% can see, right? But it was the reality of someone who could see air travel. It was the reality of someone who decided, okay, horses and oxen and donkeys aren't going to be enough forever.
That's it.
We need something else. Let's do the automobile. Let's bring in a train. And wow, let's try the sky. And who is it? Is it Charles Bernard Shaw, I think, that says about the unreasonable man? You know that quote? The reasonable man conforms himself to the world, and the unreasonable man does everything in his power to conform the world to himself. Therefore, all progress is contingent on the unreasonable man.
Yeah, because when you think about it, so imagine, 300 years ago, we're doing it before air travel. Mm-hmm. The ability to get on an airplane was already there.
Yeah.
So it's not even a matter of unreasonable. It's just we're not aware.
Yeah.
The laws of the dynamic, nothing's been added. There's not a single thing that's been added to our universe. It's all here. We just haven't thought from that state of awareness, that state of possibility, in order to bring it from the invisible realm into a three-dimensional existence, like air flight or cars, but the principles have always been here. Mm-hmm. And when we really let that land, whatever new possibility we're thinking into, the very fact that you can think it up is evidence that everything required is already here. Otherwise, you couldn't have had the thought. Yeah. And that's the creative capacity of spirit moving through us when we're willing to pay attention, right, and act accordingly. And have faith, have more faith in the unseen than we can in the seen. I love the word nonsense. Have you ever thought about the origin of the word nonsense?
No.
All right, so think about this. Non-sense, beyond the senses, no senses. Mm. So it means that it's got to go beyond what we can gather with the five senses. Uh-huh. And so it's non-sense. It's beyond the world of senses. And what we've done,
you can't hear it, you can't smell it, touch it.
Yeah. And we've made it silly. We've equated nonsense with silly.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But I kind of like living out in nonsense because it's bigger, it's beyond anything that what me in this human form can comprehend or entertain. And it's an invitation to go beyond so much more than what my five senses can bring to me. So it's a belief in the invisible over what's what's visible.
And that's exactly, I mean, if we look, for those of us who study biblical texts, right, it's always that faith of a mustard seed. It was always, I love, one of my favorite stories really, as far as when I'm teaching vision board classes or just teaching people how to have a vision, because without a vision, the people perish, right? And that's so true, whether you're a biblical person or not, without a vision, we perish. And so when I'm teaching it, I love to teach the story of the man with the demon-possessed son. And he comes to Jesus and he says, can you heal my son? And he says, if you believe that I can. And instead of going, oh man, I actually don't have that much belief, that's a bummer. He goes, help me with my unbelief. And I constantly say, sometimes our prayer just needs to be, help me with my unbelief, because it's about believing. It's about seeing it in your mind's eye. It's about being that person because you believe it's possible, that changes your reality. And I was watching a sermon you gave in Texas, and you talked about a question to ask yourself. And that is, if it all worked out, how would I feel? And to get into that, again, it's be, do, have. Get into that feeling, that being. Okay, if I, became president of the United States, if that was your goal, then I would feel empowered. I would feel I'm making a difference. I would feel, how can I feel that now and start making a difference in my neighborhood, in my home?
That's it.
I always teach people, do it on the 10% or the 1% if that's all you have. And it's funny, one of the things if you're in a conversation with me and someone says, oh yeah, I wish I could travel like you do. When I have more money, I'll travel. I say, no, you won't. And they, of course, look shocked because that's not a polite thing to say.
Yeah, but
if you're not camping now or going to a timeshare presentation or doing something with the little bit of money you have, you'll simply have a bigger house and nicer cars and whatever you currently value. You'll have more of that when you have more money. And so we have to be that which we say we want to be. And if we're not, I think we need to examine, right? Why am I not that? Do I really want it? And I think the answer, though, usually is yes. It just requires a change. And that was another thing you spoke about in that sermon, and I'd really love to dig into, is that your current level of awareness is a perfect match for everything that you have now. Everything that you are now is your perfect level of awareness. And so talk to us about deepening or accelerating that level of awareness so that we can get to those places that we want to be.
Yeah, well, so first of all, I want to back up a little bit, because when you talked about, creating vision boards and visioning, here's the deal. People are visioning all the time. We can't turn it off.
That's true.
And the power of our vision, it is our ability to, when I say vision, or when we talk about thinking, what we're actually talking about is running mental images in this faculty of our imagination. And whatever we are running in our imagination then generates feelings.
Yeah.
Our feelings, if we look at the world of quantum physics, our feelings there's an energy to them, and it's like broadcasting out into this energy field into our world. And if we look at just from a practical standpoint, what we see and what we feel will determine how we see ourselves. We will never outperform the way we see ourselves. If you don't see yourself in a particular way, you won't be able to entertain ideas that are bigger than your self-image. They're there, but it's like Teflon. They flip off.
Yeah.
So the purpose of your vision, something, an intentional, I'm going to call it an intentional vision, is that it's actually God's way of inviting you to discover more of who you are created to be. Because who you are today will not give that next level of success, of good, of abundance, of purpose. It doesn't have a permission slip.
Yes, talk to us about that. I loved how you went into, our circumstances around us, our facts are what we look to give us permission to have a vision. And I run into this all the time, either with clients or just talking to people, that their dreams are so confined to the facts. If I ask them, what do you want? It's, and I'll even say, if God were to come up to you today and say, Felicia, in 5 years, I will give you whatever you want, completely whatever it is. Just tell me and I'll give it to you. Still, people are like, if I could just make this much amount of money, or I just could live in this kind of house, or, I'm like, no, God's coming to you. He has everything. He could, give you a country if you wanted it, and still it's really hard for people because all they've known is what they've seen.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe I'm super blessed because I grew up all around the world and saw a lot of things early on. And so I'm like, oh, I know that's possible,
Yeah.
But so sometimes we're limited to what we have already seen or what the facts are around us or to our experiences thus far. And then even our imagination has been handicapped because we've only asked our facts for permission and never asked our soul for that permission.
Well, and it's trusting that, right?
Yeah.
That we've been so trained, because you're right, asking people what they want. The way that I phrase it is, what would you love? Yeah. Understanding that that is the holiest, most profound, most reverent of all questions that we can ask, because what we're doing is we are entering into a conversation with the source of love itself. Mm-hmm. And in order to be able to really listen deeply, so the people that I have the honor of working with and coaching, one of the things that I hear from them repetitively is that they learned how to really listen to the answer to that question. Because what gets in the way are things like, number one, it's never going to happen. Number two, I have too much to lose, so I'm asking for too much. I don't know how to do it. And I think that the pervasive underlying thought that I've noticed in people, and it was what I noticed in myself, it's that lack of deserving. It's like, it's the illusion that we're going to God, asking God for this.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's God coming to us, asking us to step in to this next level of awareness and be the vehicle through which this comes. Now, I'm not talking about, because I think this is the other thing, and I hear this a lot from people. How do I know it's not just my ego? How do I know it's not just my ego? That people get afraid. And here's the thing that I know about you, Reina Rose, and I know about your listeners, because they're listening to you. They're really good people. You're really good people. And there's a fear, what people have shared with me, that if too much good happens for them, that they're going to lose themselves. They're going to lose their way, right? They're going to lose their moral compass. When we talk in the area of money, people often talk about money does things to them.
Right.
Would do things
all evil, right?
Yeah. Or if you, if things come easily, then you'll get complacent and you don't really earn it. And so there's this misconception that this is my desire, and it's not okay for me to go to God with my desire. And so let me just be happy with what I have. And the thing that I want to help people understand is that soul desire, whatever it is, yeah, it's not your desire.
That's right.
It's God's desire coming to you, for you, in order to move through you. And the reason why this is so important, back to what you were talking about before, about giving permission, we have to grow our capacity to make welcome that much more good in our lives. We have to know ourselves worthy. We have to see ourselves capable. We have to trust our ability to use it for good. And all of that stretches us beyond where we currently are. And so when that desire comes in, that's bigger than anything that you've ever known for yourself before, who you are today can't accept it
Yeah.
because it's like, you know, the first time I flew business class, I'll never forget this. Somebody gifted it to me. I was going to a seminar. Somebody gifted me the seminar, and they gifted me a business class ticket. I got on that airplane excruciatingly uncomfortable, waiting for somebody to tap me on the shoulder and say, "You belong in coach." There wasn't an ounce of recognition in me that belonged there. Right. And that's the invitation, wherever the belonging is. I'm just using that as an example.
No, I remember my first time in business class, and I'm like, do I have to pay for this? Do I need to?
Yes.
And they're like, no, everything's free.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, somebody's going to tell me that.
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be here. And am I allowed to take advantage of everything that is allowed at this level? And I think spiritually, am I okay, I'm here, maybe. Maybe I even was able to get to that next place God's brought me to. But can I be all of the things in this level that God's called me to be?
Well, that's it, right? And that goes back to being, is that it's that full putting it on, and becoming so saturated with the identification of it. Yeah. So not only do you arrive, but now you sustain it. That there's a true transformation in who you know yourself to be and how you show up. And what happens when we do that is that we fundamentally shift the way we move, and our ability to truly, authentically serve goes so much more deeper because we're coming from that truer, more authentic place. Absolutely. So I don't remember what so the permission slip.
Yeah.
So the desire is actually God knocking at the door of our heart, asking for more permission, asking permission to bring us more, which means we have to know ourselves as more.
There's a pastor I love who says, you know, God's a gentleman. He's not going to just come in and make you take the blessings, right? He's going to come in and say, may I have permission to give you this blessing? And we have to say, yes, please.
Yes, and we have to see ourselves, and from that identification, that relationship, that awareness.
You know, that there's something so powerful in what you just said there, and something that, so I take communion sometimes daily, right? And I'll do it with friends, and I do it in a very different way than most people do. And I actually break the bread, and I receive whatever it is that I need of Christ in that moment that is Christ consciousness, right? I receive your humility. I receive your confidence. I receive your joy, your love, your peace. You know, I receive every one of those things. I receive your abundance, you know, and I will even go into different parts of the Bible where he's overflowing, you know, with changing water to wine and baskets of leftovers, right? And I started doing that with a friend of mine, and she came to me about a year and a half later. And it was funny because we were in some bad places when we started doing this together. We were crying about how bad our lives were, right? And by the end of it, we were in tears of how amazing our lives were. And that, you know, that from the bottom of our feet, we were so joyous, and I just love my life. Well, she said, you know, I used to come to communion kind of groveling like a worm before God, I'm so not worthy, and I just, you know, allow me to take this little piece of you. And she said, when I started doing communion with you, I saw myself as God's child, a queen, worthy of his blessings and worthy of his love, and partaking of his, you know, taking his body was ingesting God's glory into myself. And she goes, it completely changed the way I approached God, completely changed the way I prayed, and what I saw myself as deserving. And I think of that verse as you've been speaking of, God gives us the secret desires of our hearts. He even comes in, and those things that we didn't even want to admit to ourselves, we didn't even know we were worthy of. He knows those things. He placed them in our hearts.
That's the thing. Not only does he know them, but he brought them to us, because it's God's way of helping us wake up to more of who he created us to be. So it's not, so the purpose of that desire, the thing is great, whatever the thing is, you know, the relationship, the fulfilling work, the more money, you know, the house, whatever it is, the thing is great. But more importantly, it's who you've become in the process of truly being able really receive, not get. There's a difference between getting something. There's a difference between getting the job, getting the relationship, getting the money.
Yeah.
When we're in a get mentality, even when it materializes, we're still in a scarcity relationship with it. Absolutely. You know, because there's that fear of, is it going to last? Is it going to be taken away? Do I really deserve it?
When's the shoe going to drop? Because I got this, but who knows if someone else is going to get it from me, right?
That's it. But when it's in a true receivership,
yeah,
and we are a steward of that receiving, you're not the same person.
Yeah.
You can't be the same person. And that's what God's after. And it's a really fun way to grow us.
Yeah. Right? And I think, like, as you're talking about who we become. And again, I just loved that sermon, and I can't wait to listen to more of what you have to say. And I want to talk about your event coming up as well. But I was thinking of, you're saying how God transforms us to be that person. And when we can be, do, have, I've heard some people call me like a master manifester. And it's because I start, just like you said, with the be. Okay, who do I need to be to have that which I want, which would just light me up, which I would love? Who do I need to be for that? Are my shoulders back when I'm that person? Mm-hmm. Am I breathing easily when I'm that person? Do I wake up and just give so much thanks for my life when I'm that person? And I think that's, you teach, like, if you had those things, who would you be? Be that now. And those things will come much faster. They will chase after you. I think it's David who says, that the goodness and love chases after him all the days of his life.
Yeah. Yeah. And the beautiful thing about, so that we were given two superpowers. One of them is this faculty of our imagination and the capacity to consciously choose the images that we mentally rehearse in what Joseph Murphy calls the movie screen of our mind. When you think about Jesus, he said, ask and you shall receive. And here's the thing, we're always asking. Whenever you are flashing across the screen of your mind, that's what you're asking. Yeah. He said, pray believing. We're always believing in something, right? And we want to know what we're believing, and all we got to do is look at the experience that we're having in our world. Mm-hmm. So the superpower being able to, when he was talking about the fields, he said, you see fields growing, right? That it's there, it's barren, but I see the fields white, ripe for harvest.
Yeah.
So he saw it before it actually happened. When you look at the miracle of the fishes and the loaves, I love that miracle. Yeah. And I wrote about it in my book. I wrote a book, Do Greater Things, Following in Jesus' Footsteps, about 10 years ago. What is it to truly put on the beingness that Jesus the Christ invited us to be? I would go back and rewrite the chapter on gratitude differently, because what I said was that Jesus gave thanks in advance before it happened. It wasn't in advance. Yeah. He didn't give it in advance. He gave it from that place of knowing it's here now. Yeah. It's here now. And so the two superpowers are our capacity to consciously choose mental images and choose feelings. How are we feeling in any given moment? And not having it be determined by what's going on around us. That determines how we see ourselves. And the reason why this is so important is because when you are putting on a more developed, a more aware version of you, you literally start lighting up different areas of your brain.
Yes.
You think differently. You now have access to ideas and a level of creativity that you don't have access to thinking from same old, same old. And from a spiritual perspective, we now have access to the stream of creative intelligence that's always there. Yeah. Go back to like Leonardo da Vinci. No, it was Michelangelo. Nope, it was Leonardo da Vinci. It was Leonardo da Vinci actually had sketches of a flying machine.
Yes, it was Da Vinci.
And if he would have gotten caught, he would have been excommunicated for sure, or house arrest, possibly even executed. because it was beyond it. And it was just simple lack of awareness, right?
Yes.
And so when we understand that the desire is God's invitation for us to imagine beyond what we can physically see, and then start living as if that is,
Yes.
that's the true act of faith.
Yes.
That's the true act of faith, because, you know, Thomas, let me see, right? Let me see it. And Jesus said something to the effect that, you know, those who believe without seeing will be rewarded. Yeah. Well, what are you seeing? You're seeing what's in mind, and you're living as if it's already here. Mm-hmm. And then from that place, now you're gathering the energy of the divine to work in your favor, in the world's favor. And that's the highest act. It's the highest act of faith, and it's the highest act of love. Yeah. Because what you're saying is that I believe more in the power of love moving through me in the form of my desire and in my image than I am in what my world is telling me right now. There's something bigger than what my world is telling me right now.
Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, that's the faith that moves mountains.
That's it.
I see this mountain in the sea. How it gets there, I already know it's there. I don't need to figure it out. God's got it. The next action step, and that was one of the. I took so many notes on that sermon. One of the questions
I've been in Dallas.
Asked it was if I really believed this was possible.
Yes.
What's the action step I would take right now? And that's like you were saying. You know, he already saw it done. So the next action step was to break the bread and give thanks for it.
That's it. And keep passing it out without looking around saying, oh my God, run along. You know, but think about this. What was the first thing he did when his disciples came to him and they were getting nervous because like the natives are getting restless kind of thing. And they like the secret police, they wanted to swoop him out of there, right? Do you remember the first thing he did?
Didn't he ask them to feed them all? And they said something like that would take so much money or something like that.
Yeah, he turned to them and he said, "You feed them."
That's right. Yeah.
And they were like deer in the headlight. And that's when he took over. But he kept inviting them into self-recognition. Yeah. Not just me, but you've got this power too.
You could do it, right? He wasn't trying to tease them and say, "Oh, look what I can do." It was like, you can do this, but all their mind could go to was, "This is how much money it costs, and to feed this many people would be this, and this is this is what my facts tell me I have permission to do."
That's it. So when we live in the question, so first of all, it's trusting the vision, right? Trusting the power and the origin. Yeah. The origination of the desire and the vision. So much so that, and here's where the discipline comes in, right? Because our world is constantly talking to us. Living from that possibility over all else, that becomes the loudest voice in our head, in the words of Joe Dispenza. And then from that place, living into, if I really believe this, if this is what I believe over what my world is telling me, this is the action I would take. Yeah. That is the truest act of faith, that you're believing more in what you're coming alive in the presence of, you know, that I come alive in the presence of this dream, of this possibility, trusting that this truly is divinely inspired. And if I really believed this was where I was being led, this is the action I would take. And then take the action over and over and over and over again. As you are growing into the person who's giving permission for this, right? It's not just about setting goals, but it's about truly learning how to live and accommodate that much more good. So when it starts coming, you know, when the doors of heaven start opening and start showering upon us, there's not that old status quo in us that wants to shut it down.
Yeah.
But that you keep allowing it and you keep growing from it. And so there's a writer by the name of Genevieve Barron where she says, you know, visualizing is order. It's bringing your thought and your thinking to order. It's effectively tapping into the stream of divine intelligence, which means to visualize is a heavenly thing, and to live into that vision is it is the way of bringing heaven here right now.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I want to tap into what you were saying about, you know, that we learn to take action on that and to continually do it again and again and again and not wait for permission. I see a lot of times, I've done it myself and I see it around me sometimes where people want permission from others, not themselves, not God, not the divine intelligence. Now, and I want to talk about this in contrast with, I know you've had a really great mentor, and mentors are so valuable.
Yeah.
And you're a mentor to many and a coach. So contrasting asking the world for permission, asking our circumstances, asking everybody else, and contrasting that with what it means to have a good mentor who helps you to ask the right questions of yourself and give yourself that permission.
Well, the thing that when it's, you know, when we're going out here, right, it's not really trusting your own inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that fear, what I find is that when people go out here, they're not so much asking, should I or should I not do this? What they're asking is, am I going to lose you if I do this?
Mm.
Are you gonna fight this? Are you gonna stay behind?
Yes.
Are you gonna come with me?
That's so true.
So I think underneath that question, that's what people are really asking. Is what do I stand to lose? And are you in that if I do this?
Yeah, I'm thinking of my own life, and I've been sometimes for better or for worse, more of the rebellious, like, oh well, I lose you, you know. But it's definitely been like, are you with me?
Yeah.
Or am I gonna have to go this alone? Like, please, I hope you're on my team. I hope you can see this outside of reality that you may think I am. Like, just come into this vision with me for a moment, and like, I tell you, if you just come on over, like you can see it through this peephole, it will open up the whole world.
Yes, I love that analogy. See it through this peephole. And one of the things that I help people, so let me speak to that and then I'll speak about the difference in a mentor. When people are bumping up against that, where they have people that they love and love them that are not quite on board, one of the things that I tell my people that I have the honor of working with is let those people off the hook.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that the people closest to us are going to be the ones directly impacted by what we do or don't do. Yes. And so they want to be there for us, right? They want to be there for you. And there's this part that's getting activated in them that's saying, but how is this going to impact me? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes they just need some time to warm up to the idea and to learn to trust it and to trust you, and they need the evidence. Absolutely. And so
I had that with the summit, actually. Someone really close to me, you know, this is the first time we've ever done this. It was just post COVID-19, and we were bringing together for 5 days, you know, 130 different speaking topics. And so they were like, I think you should postpone. I don't, you've never done this before. Are you sure this other person's not doing this? What are you going to, and I'm like, it's not going to be perfect, and we're going to move forward anyway. You know, and then I focus on what you can control, and we got to move forward in what we can control, and what we can't has to just keep, you know.
Yeah, and loving those closest around us enough to give them the dignity of their discomfort, and not to try to get something from them that they're just not in the place and the position to be able to give it to us. Which goes back to what you were talking about, a mentor, which is why a mentor is so important. Number one, a mentor will guide you to hear your own voice of internal insight, your own voice of internal guidance, rather than telling you what to do. A good mentor will never tell you what to do, but to keep bringing you back to you. And they've walked the path, right? So they've blazed a trail. They have a system to help you. It's like, I have a system to help my people, and they care deeply, but they're not going to be directly impacted by what your decisions are or aren't. Like my husband, when I said, you know what, I think it's time for us to release Tennessee and find someplace else to live. There's a whole story behind that I just knew that we were both complete. And it took him a while to come to that on his own as well. And he was very clear that, you know what, I'm complete. But a mentor, there's no personal impact or investment. And you need somebody like that outside the frame who can hold the space for you without having what's going to happen to me because of this going on inside of them. So I have, for the last 10 years, I've always had a mentor. And I worked with the same one for 9.5 years, and she's still a part of my life. But she knows me like so few other people do. And she has a way of being able to go in quick and help me do a think pattern interruption, right? To help me see the pattern that my thinking's wanting to go down, do that pattern interruption, and then the important piece, what are we replacing it with? What's the piece that we're replacing it with that's in alignment with what we're creating and who we're becoming? And so for me, it's almost impossible to build out what it is that you really want without a mentor. And here's the other thing. I don't ever want to dream that I can do on my own.
Absolutely.
I don't want to dream that I can do on my own. I want something so beyond what I can do for me on my own that I need somebody further down the path than I am outside of the frame to help me grow and see things that I can't see. I'm inside the frame. It's like the instructions are on the outside of the box and we're in the box.
Yeah. I love that. The Bible says victories are won with a multitude of wise counselors, and we have to figure out who that is for us. That might be a mentor and a coach or a therapist. There's so many different things. And I talk about sometimes, if, especially emotionally, when you think of therapy and coaching, and then, also mentor comes into there, but sometimes Pandora's box is just too dangerous to open ourselves. Like if you think of some emotional issues that we have and things like that, without someone who's trained to deal with some of that, if we have deep traumas and stuff like that, that's dangerous to open by ourselves. And of course,
absolutely
above the surface, because we can't go down here, right?
Yeah.
It's not safe. But when we have that multitude of wise counselors that, hey, I'm actually trained to deal with that thing that you don't want to open the box for. So let's open it up, deal with that thing. And now you don't have this heavy box you're toting around with you everywhere you go. It's really light, and we can fill it with new great things that you actually want in that box. And so,
and the step beyond opening Pandora's box, because this is where I come in, is that absolutely doing the deep healing, but and even from there, very few people really understand the intricacy and the nuance of living from vision and understanding how easily the status quo brings us back. And so getting help with really working with the nuances of the new beingness and holding steady that identification long enough and sustained enough for your world to reorganize accordingly. Because we are the organizing pattern of our life.
And we need that. So many of you watching know that I actually changed my name at one point. And I think about how Christ, in fact, when I was making the decision whether to make it legal or not, I read all about, every Bible study was about Christ changing the name of the disciples and about, how a society isn't set up for us changing our names, but really we're different people at different times. And as you're saying, like Christ would hold you know, he would say Simon Peter sometimes, like, you're acting like Simon, but I'm calling you to be Peter, right?
Yes.
And so I think about that, you know, sometimes it's so easy, like, oh, I could just go back into the pattern of being Melissa, and life would be easy and comfortable and never change, right?
Well, and not even being aware when you're slipping back. You know, that's the power of having somebody outside, is that you're not even, I know for myself and the people that I've had the honor and continue to have the honor of working with, that it's so seductive that you just, it's like that pair of slippers. You don't even know that you've slipped back into it.
Yeah.
And so to have somebody help you see, well, wait a minute, you know, this is who you are now. Let's stay here long into the transformation.
Yeah, she says, you know, I don't think that Melissa would have even done this, but Reina is going forward, or if I'm slipping into it, I think you're going back into
yes.
this. And I think Reina is called more to do that. What do you, you know, and then brings it into, what do you think? What's your thoughts on that? Because it's always bringing it back in, and like you said, a good mentor, a good coach help someone come into their own value system, to their compass. And so tell us about your event and how you're helping people do that on a transformational, is it weekend?
Yes.
Yes.
So July 24th, 25th, and 26th, I'm doing a 3-day virtual deep dive immersion into the system of transformation. We're going to...
So they can come from anywhere because it's virtual.
Yes. Yes, it's virtual. So we're going to go deep into that there really is a sacred system for success. So we're going to walk through those steps, really spend time listening deeply to that most reverent question, what would I love? Looking to see those places that you start bumping up against, that gravitational pull back, and some tools on what to do, how to listen to your own voice of inspired insight to know what your next action steps are, and then make some decisions about some things. And so it's a 3-day incubation of transformation, of really helping people go deep.
Amazing. It makes me think, so I'm kind of a nerd, and I studied this book years ago about an astrophysicist and a biochemist got together, and they were talking about the origin of life, right? And they were saying that in a petri dish, an amoeba can, you know, sprout legs and begin to evolve. But in a volatile earth that we had, you know, like that wouldn't have survived because, you know, the volatility of volcanoes everywhere and things like that. And so they were saying how life had to be spontaneous and complex. But what I love is an amoeba can grow inside of a petri dish.
Yes.
And so your 3-day retreat is kind of the petri dish of getting this amoeba to sprout legs before the volcanoes come and, you know, kill it, really. And so you're able to bring yourself into this safe place for growth, for rapid transformation. You know, we can do the baby steps, and you talked about that in one of this. I just loved watching everything you have. You know, that we often take these incremental little steps and then we slide back and incremental little steps, but we're not getting those quantum leaps. And so going to something like this 3-day retreat really helps you take that quantum leap you're looking to take, and you've leaped so far you can't go back, because what did you say? You need a looking glass to see who you used to be.
Yeah, yes, it's definitely a time to establish a firm foundation for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
where can people find you? Where can they find this amazing event?
On my website, FeliciaSearcy.com, and we got a link, yourultimatelifenow.com. I should know that, right? So yourultimatelifenow.com. But if that's too much to remember, just go to my website, FeliciaSearcy.com.
We'll try to get it up on the screen here, yourultimatelife.com and Felicia Searcy.
Yourultimatelife.now.com.
Yourultimatelife.now.com. So we'll get that up on the screen, and we will. I can't wait to hear more about this event, hear all the transformational stories, and it's July 24th,
25th, and 26th.
24th, 25th, and 26th. So don't miss it. Make sure you go check out the event. Check out all of Felicia's videos. I promise you won't be disappointed. You're going to have a great time. And really, I encourage you, pray into the places that you've just been settling for status quo and you haven't been really growing into all that God's called you to be. And pray into what could that reality be if I really owned that divine breath inside of me that created worlds. what would I be creating with my life? And how can I believe for that? And what mentor, coach, program, what do I need to get into? What leap of faith do I need to take to make that happen? So I encourage you, make sure to check out Felicia. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Reina, thank you. It's my joy.
And as always, thank you all for listening. And until I see you next time, may the Lord bless and keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, and nourish your soul.